Welcome to another episode of the Life Adventurist podcast. I'm Jenny Holly, your host, and this is the place to be for conscious leaders and spiritual entrepreneurs who are ready to really embrace who they are, move from the mental and solving things with their mind and into really moving more into an energetic space. And of course, on this podcast, we're going to explore all things spirituality, some of the edges of spirituality. I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences and one of my favorite topics, the Akashic records. So today's episode is really unique in that we did a reading with Keri recently. So I don't know, about 10 episodes ago or so. And the name of that episode was called Damsel in Disguise. And it was an actual Akashic record reading that we did with Keri. And Keri and I have really formed this relationship so that if you've been here on YouTube or if you're not on YouTube and you're just on the podcast, Keri's been helping out with my mini live Akashic record readings that I've been doing twice a month. And so you guys may have seen her if you're part of the visual experience. You may have heard of her if you listened to the past episode. And she had a great idea to come on and have a little chat about what life has been like here, I don't know, a couple months after the reading, what has changed, what has shifted, and really just have this conversation, which I think is really beautiful because we have the opportunity to have the conversation a bit right there the day of the reading, but now there's been time for integration. So let me bring Keri on. Hello, Keri.
Hi, Miss Jenny.
I'm glad you were willing to do this because I do think it's really unique to have this conversation. And Keri, just so you guys know, Keri has actually shared some of this with me because we have developed a friendship. And so she shared things along the way, but I don't fully know everything she's going to say today. And I don't know like all the ins and outs. And it's really, I'm curious about some things being the practitioner. And, that we're just going to have an open conversation. That's really what it is, to talk about like, all right, cool. It's been a couple months. Now what? Like, what do you think about Akashic records and how has your life changed and all of that? So I'll give you a chance to share whatever's on your mind first before I go into some of my like curious questions that I have.
Your curious questions.
Mm-hmm. My curious questions. Curiosity.
Yeah, I can't help but love the pun to death. Overuse it even. It's like my ongoing dad joke. Okay, so let's see where to start. I think I'll start with okay, so the first kind of place that I went to that I gravitated towards exploring was the dragon thing. Of all the things, it's like dragons. That felt the most fun to kind of start unpacking, like this idea of I had dragons, but then in that opening remark, like they weren't showing up, and then, and I definitely haven't seen or even like considered dragons in this lifetime, right? Like, in my explorations, most people that do dragon work have felt them their entire lives this lifetime. And I definitely had not. And so really kind of started exploring that in a contemplative way. Did a couple of like calling in dragon meditations. And through all of that, kind of came to some other realizations. And I definitely kept, so advice to anybody, get that recording of your reading and go back to it many times. Because every time I listened to it, I heard, maybe I didn't hear something else. I heard the same thing, but something else was unlocked.
Right. It's
I
like different
noticed something.
perspectives. Yeah, you were in a different
exactly.
space, so you're maybe open to hearing something differently. I mean, side note completely, as we hired an intuitive coach, and we hired her about 2 years ago and went through, I think, about 4 months of work with her. And it was at a different point in my life and business where we were working on like a fitness program for brides and we were doing like a whole different thing. And so I just went back and listened to all of those recordings, even though they're 2 years old and they were at a different point in my life. And I grabbed so much from them that applied to now. I was like, wow. And of course, the guidance about fitness with brides, I set that aside because it's not relevant anymore. And I was like, whoa, wow, there are some things I can see that have came to fruition. There are some things, and I found the place where she was talking about, she was actually the person who really sparked our nomad trip, because that it came through on a reading, and I found the spot where she shared that she had a vision of Jay and I traveling around and working and living this lifestyle. And she even said, like, I feel like it'll be a short period of time, maybe 6 to 12 months. And it's funny because that was the initial intention for it. And of course, it's turned into over 2 years. So it was like, whoa, how cool. So anyway, side note on that, like, I never listened to the replays of any of those calls from when I was like live going through it.
When you listen back to things, do you ever hear like where, because there was a couple of times in this reading where I was like, wow, like my words that came after you said something totally missed the mark. Like I was not active listening, or I was, but I was putting it through a filter of what was top of mind in that moment. So like I heard you and I responded, but then I realized I was responding to something through my lens. And I don't know if we can actually ever truly, at least I haven't perfected the skill of truly listening without replying through a filter or lens. Like I'm not planning my response. You know how they say, like, you're not active listening if you're planning your response. I don't necessarily plan my response, but I definitely have things that are top of mind. That is like my lens when I go to say words next.
I'll say a couple of things for that. I'll say thing number one is that I notice this in readings all the time, and even with clients. There's something that we want or desire, and it's like we really want someone to share that thing with us or share it in a certain way with us. And so in that moment, yes, we are hearing through those filters because we didn't hear that keyword, or we didn't hear or feel that confirmation that we were searching for on some level. And going to your point about re-listening to the reading, that's why it helps, because you've slept, you're in a new space, you can hear things differently. The other thing I will share is that looking back on our time with that intuitive coach, it really brought me back to that space because I wanted to make money so bad and I wanted to be successful so bad. And early on in our coaching, I was annoyed because I felt like that wasn't happening. And I felt like the guidance that was coming through was stuff I had already heard. I was like, why are we investing? Because it was, like 10 grand to invest in her. Like it was a significant amount of money to work with her. And I was like, oh God, not again. And I like was so embarrassed at the time. I went and I like hid myself and acted like I was like petting my dog. And then she was like, where's Jenny? She could see me, but like I had my back to the camera, and because we had it up on a counter, and I was like petting the dog and I'm like, I'm fine. And she's like, no, let's work through this. And I was like, I'm just so fucking frustrated. Like, so frustrated. I feel like I'm told the same thing. Like, when is it going to happen for me? And looking back on that time, a lot of the coaches, a lot of the experiences, a lot of the trainings, whatever it was that I went through, I feel like that lens that I was looking through is I was looking for this like shiny gold answer. And everything that people were sharing, telling, reflecting, whatever it was, whatever format, none of it clicked with me because I feel like I really hadn't come to it myself. And the thing was, is I was looking for others to tell me what I hadn't discovered myself, which is why it was a miss, right? Like had I discovered it myself, then it would have been a confirmation.
Right. Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting because I love how the universe does this. I actually had a one-on-one client that I just worked with recently, and she had a moment similar to my moment where, she had the face on and we had finished a session and I could tell that she was unhappy, right? I could tell that was there, and we would hit like our time, we'd hit our hour, and I was like, okay, what's here? I can feel it. Something's not right. And she had a similar moment to mine where, it was tears, and I'm just so frustrated. I'm told the same thing over and over and over. I've invested all this time and money and I was like, oh my God, I feel you. Like, I feel this because
I'm
I
feeling
have
it.
felt the same way. Like, I've been there in the same way, And so, yeah, those are the two things that come up with what you asked there. And
Well, that's
I
a
think,
great segue too, because that kind of brings me to something else.
go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, no, I wanted you to finish.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that one of the things that you said, this is just where my curiosity comes in, is the, like you said, like, you feel like we would always have those filters, like no matter what, like there would be some kind of a filter of the present moment. And I feel that as we continue to peel off the layers and come into a wholeness and a wholeness inside of us, I feel like, yes, the filters will always be there. And I'm curious about, okay, when we're more grounded and rooted in ourselves, are there more confirmations when we are working with outside help, readings, whatever? Like, there's more of that confirmation of like being like, okay, what I thought is confirmed. And if new things come in, we're receiving them from a different space, and we're receiving them from a space of being like, I know who I am, I know what I want, I know, you know what I'm saying? I trust myself. And so then when something new comes in, it's not about the filter, and it's not about it missing us. It's not about it not being what we thought it was going to be. It's more of like, okay, cool. Let me sit with that and let me decide, instead of being like reactive to the information. It's more of a dance with the information that's coming through, like receiving it from a place of this word keeps coming up, detached awareness, and receiving it, and just being like, cool, that's what it is, and not reacting
Yeah.
to it. And I think that's what we
Yeah.
do sometimes. And hey, I'm not saying we would get to this place that we never react to anything, but I feel
Right.
like we have more peace in these experiences of receiving whatever it
Well,
is.
and even as I was saying that, I kind of amended it as I was saying it, because I was like, I think we always, and I was like, we and always. So as I was saying that, it popped in that, well, I know that when Jenny's in the space where she is connected to the records, she is not using that filter. And I know this because you don't remember like a lot of what you said,
Yeah.
which tells me there's not really the ego filter, which egos, there's a place for them, right? It's a tool for helping us realize what we need to be aware of. So either the ego is shouting really loudly in protest, or celebrating very boastfully in,
Right.
winningness,
Right.
because
Right.
our ego does those things, right? And so that's kind of why I half amended it as I was saying it, because I was like, no, there are spaces where that's not necessarily true. And speaking to what you just said about self-trust, it kind of made me realize that trusting what you are hearing in the moment is fine. What I heard in the moment of the reading that we did was perfect. I can trust that that was like, there's nothing has gone wrong because I had that lens on.
Totally.
At least not for me, because I
Totally.
like to experience the unfolding. Something I learned from my reading. Go back and listen to the episode. But I think that was something that was part of my soul agreement that you shared with me, was that the experience of the unfolding is what I agreed to do. It's what I wanted to do before I came here, to have
Yeah.
this particular timeline of experience. And that's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like you said, I don't remember a lot of the readings and what comes through. And so I actually, right before this, I went back and listened to your episode, because I wanted to be able to like have that fresh to bring anything in that I found interesting. So I do remember that point where where the guides were very clear in that, like, Keri, because I think it had to do with like, yes, you want things to happen in a snap of a finger, but your soul, purpose and what you've agreed to in this lifetime is to experience the fullness of things and to go through all of that. Now, I really want to ask this question. in the opening remarks, your opening remarks were very unique in that I've not had, and I love all of the opening remarks are unique, but some are, uniquer than others in the way that they're presented because they're ways that hasn't come through. Is that um, well, first of all, they were like, okay, well, they showed me a book and they showed the book and the book's opening and going to pages. And then you were to say, like, stop when it was the page to go to. And then it was like that page then was stories of past lives and details of past lives and what you referenced with the dragons, like there was talking about how you were watching a battle and it was like the battle was of your creation and that you were calling in your dragons and the dragons weren't coming in the way that you thought that they were there but they weren't coming in the way that you had expected. And so as I was listening back to that, this is something I've always been curious about. When it comes to past lives, sometimes they sound like they could be completely made up, like a bunch of made up random words, right? And if someone's not into this work or maybe hasn't been exposed to past lives, you could listen to that and be like, okay, cool, like drag it, like what the hell? Like what the hell is this? What's the purpose? Da 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 da. And side note, I'm gonna have a past life person on the podcast that we're gonna talk more deeply about this. So what well, what was it like for you receiving this what could be perceived from the outside, this crazy far-fetched story of like dragons and you're in a tower watching a battle? Like, what was that like for you receiving that? And do you believe in past lives?
Well, I do believe in past lives. Okay, so past, previous, we'll call them previous experiences on this earth and previous experiences, maybe not of this earth, which is something that I'm like, just kind of like, on this earth has always been like, that's a no-brainer for me in a lot of ways, because since I was very young, I've resonated with that. Possibly because I was exposed to the idea at a young age, like the possibility of it, through my upbringing. My parents were loosely New Agey. So it never really surprised me. But also, I remember very distinctly, I think I was reading a Christopher Pike book. Do you remember Christopher Pike? Oh, so just kind of like a kind of more grown up R.L. Stein sort of vibe. Like Goosebumps, but like maybe 3 years older. Goosebumps.
Okay, got it.
So I was reading him, and he does some of these things kind of with past lives. And there was this one that was Egyptian themed, and I remember, or Greek themed. I remember thinking to myself, I was there. I was somewhere in that region. It might have been, he might have done one Greek and one Egyptian. I have something to do with Greece and Egypt at some point, because it resonates so deeply. Like, just thinking about it feels like home somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, it didn't really shock me. And also I love medieval times, the pointy hat thing, right? And then, so funny, after the reading, I went and I like researched pointy hats, right? Because why not? Like, what is that pointy hat thing called? And I don't remember what it's called, but there's actually like 2 different eras. There's a lot of dispute about like how it became European, like these things, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of led me down a path. Like, I have something to do with Ireland in like a like pre-BC sort of way, kind of dragons and chariots, because I was trying to figure out when I had my dragons, right? Because like, I'm like, okay, how can I logic through, like, where would my brain take me so that my heart can speak, right? Like, because how do you blend those 2 things, right? Because yes, you need to trust yourself in a body sense. You need to feel that trust. But our brain can take us down interesting paths that we're exposed to. So we have the opportunity to feel into things. Because if we just like feel into what's in our current awareness, I almost wonder if we won't stumble upon those things that are big hits for us, right? So I let my brain take me places and then just kind of like feel my way through Like,
Yeah, I love that.
it's a starting point. It's a starting
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and then you just kind of go on your little tangents.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to find when I had my dragons. I was like, I wonder. Okay, so like where should I like look for when I had those dragons pre damsel in disguise time, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, that's kind of like where I was going, and I landed in this Ireland place of like um before Christ times and chariots and legends that kind of like somehow it tied into legends of Greece with um, chariots driven by dragons, like this whole like thing. And I remember going, "Oh, that's really fun. I need to like look into that somehow more." like, like maybe I should ask Akashic. I thought about asking you, like, "Hey, can you
Uh-huh.
just like peek for me and see?" But I really wanted it to be an authentic experience, as far as
Mm-hmm.
like client to practitioner. So like even though I told you about things, I was really trying
Uh-huh.
not to um leverage our friendship to ask you those extra questions because I wanted to be able to come to you as like a client and
Mm-hmm.
what it would be like to chat with you and integrate and have you be a part of my sphere, but not relying on you like some sort of your guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not here to
Mm-hmm.
heal me. I'm here to work
Yeah,
on myself.
totally.
And so
Mm-hmm.
like your guidance and your friendship, Akashic guidance, and then your Jenny friendship are kind of two different things to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. I love that.
So that matters. So like I was playing around in that space, and then I finally realized that I was probably using the dragons and the medieval times and those fun things to really direct my focus away from the harder things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went and re-listened to the episode again. And when I re-listened to it again, I was like, wow, you very successfully never asked a direct question that entire session. Here I am with the opportunity to ask questions, to learn about myself, to help guide my direction going forward. Things that I have been working on very consciously for the last 3 years, like very actively, and then unconsciously and kind of inactively or in resistance to previous to that. Like, have this opportunity. And I don't spit out a single real question. If you guys go back and listen, you'll hear what I mean when I say I don't ask an actual direct, open ended, or otherwise question. And so I started kind of reflecting on that. I was like, you know what? It's because I'm afraid they'll say no.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've had some sort of experiences in little ways with other humans growing up that was if I said what it was that I wanted, it would be taken from me, not because the other person wanted it more, but to keep me from it. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. Really, really. Like if that was other people's intentions. But it was definitely like this reoccurring theme energetically my entire life to the point where I had hidden, like I knew what I wanted, but I would never look directly at it because if I looked directly at it, somebody would notice I was looking at it and then they would take it because they were suddenly aware that it existed and now they wanted it and they were more powerful than me or something
Mm-hmm.
along those
Mm-hmm.
lines. And so I was like, wow, I wonder what I would ask more directly, knowing this about myself and having a little bit more trust in myself for wanting things, for one, um, deserving things, kind of healing, allowing myself the healing of the shame of being somebody I'm not, damsel in disguise, right? Pretending
Mm-hmm.
to need help when I don't, pretending to not know things when I do, and then having to justify those things. All that kind of like unfolded that next time that I went back and listened to it when I kind of set the dragons aside.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Dragons are fun. And knowing, like, going to that place where, because what I really think that we healed that day for Keri in the pointy hat Keri, if you will, was the shame of taking something that she thought was fun that caused an issue. Something that she thought was harmless became harmful. And that is, and then not being able to undo it, right? So like guilt to me, my definition mentally of guilt is something that you can, once you become aware of it, you can fix it immediately. Shame is one of those things where you become aware of it and you can't necessarily fix it. Like you can't go back and undo it. You can be responsible and you can change going forward, but you can't unspool it. You have to forgive yourself. You have to acknowledge that those actions came from shame, and shame is one of those that I think as humans we avoid in a lot of ways, really sitting in it and going like, what does shame feel like in my body?
Mm-hmm.
And if this wasn't a problem, if feeling shame isn't a problem, and it's not something empirically wrong with me because I've done something shameful that causes those feelings in my body, how would I hold that without like beating myself up for it?
Mm-hmm.
What does that really look like from a sensation standpoint? The evolution of the shame into that forgiveness, into that being able to trust yourself again. Because if you're shameful, that trust is very tenuous and very like, it's like surface confidence instead of deep self-trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're holding on to shame and you haven't sat with it, identified where it came from, you're going to try to smooth over those edges. Just be like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Everybody makes mistakes. It's okay, it's okay, it's fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's not that big of a deal. Blah, blah, blah. And you can, but that's like way up here. To really sit with shame, you notice that it creates this cascading effect if you don't just hold it and hug it and be like, it's okay. I'm okay. We're okay. I see it. And I don't have to do that exact thing. And I might do things that I can't roll back again. And that's okay too. Nothing has gone wrong here. I can hold that shame and feel it in my body and know that I'm equipped to feel it. I'm not going to break in half. I'm not going to cry forever. Like that floodgates aren't going to come open and never shut. I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to forgive myself. And I'm going to be different going forward. And I'm going to learn what I need to learn as I need to learn it. I'm going to trust myself that when I make those mistakes, it's not for a reason, but it's not because I'm a bad person. You know what I mean? Like sometimes things just happen. I don't think there's a lesson in everything. I mean, there is, but I don't think that should be approached from like a toxic positivity sort of standpoint. Oh, well, everything happens for a reason. No, it's like, this is going on because I need to sit with my feelings about it. I feel terrible. Yeah. I feel the shame. It's weighing me down. It's causing me to take actions that are perpetuating and amplifying the shame. And then I'm trying to cover it up more and like just sitting with it makes me feel better. So knowing that I've caused battles in a past life kind of gave me a perspective on the shame that I was feeling now. I mean, really, 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 really. And so when we had that moment where you told me to like bring her into me, hug her, now she's a part of me. So now it's just Keri, not pointy hat Keri, and now Keri. That was one of the things that I shared was that you're not causing battles, and we're learning how to forgive ourselves for what, things we have caused outside of ourselves. And that forgiveness looks like more of just acknowledgement of our humanness. Not, I forgive myself because I won't ever do it again. It's, I just forgive myself for being human. Like, that is a part of our journey, and that's okay. And we can love ourselves because of it, not in spite of it.
Yeah. Well, you just said a lot of different things
I know.
in that space, which is
I'm sorry.
beautiful. No, it's beautiful. And a couple things I want to pull out to highlight are you talking about realizing that you never asked a specific direct question, right? And it's interesting because the fact that you did not ask direct questions, obviously there's so much learning in that, that in a way, like my perspective is, in a way, without asking direct questions, you got very direct answers that were meant for you to help you come into this place and space to realize, like, what if I were to articulate things in a very clear, direct manner? What would that do? Right? Like it brought you into this space. And so I want to point out for those perfectionists out there who may be considering a reading with me or anybody else, I understand that sometimes when we're investing in something like that, we want to get the most out of the time. We want to make sure we're asking like the most perfect questions, the best questions. Like I know that I have felt that way in the past. Like, this is my chance to learn all these things, right? And the experience is exactly what it was meant to be and what it will be meant to be, regardless of how you ask your questions or whatever, because it's all a learning experience. So that was one of the things I wanted to pull out from what you shared.
And I very, very, very specifically, clearly remember in the moment asking direct questions. Just for the record. Like, I was prepared. I thought I had nailed it. So continue.
Another thing that I find really beautiful is that everybody's going to have their experience with past lives. As I'm channeling them and sharing them, like the human side of me is like, what in the F am I sharing here? This feels random. This feels far out. Like I'm questioning a little bit. Am I making this up? The cool thing is where I've come to in my work is trusting that whatever I'm seeing, feeling, hearing, whatever it is that's coming through, that is exactly what it needs to be. And it's exactly what it was. I don't know. Like I can't question what it was or wasn't, because here's the thing that I was thinking as you were sharing, because you were so impacted by that past life experience. This is just something as a perspective that I was like, for sake of conversation, what if that past life experience was not in fact this past life and there was all these details, but the way it was explained, the way that it came through in the reading was a metaphor or was a perspective for how you showed up. So I feel like, at least for me and others, because I know sometimes others others have reached out to me and they get stuck on the past life. Like, what was this about? Or what was this about? And I wonder, like, is it really important to know, like, well, why was I in the castle and why was I up there? And, maybe, I don't know. Everybody's going to have to take what they need from it.
Where did my dragons go? That's where I want to hang out in integration for a while. It's just, let's find those dragons pre that time.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe, because I think that one thing that's important here, and once again, everybody's going to have their own journey. So I don't care what journey, what steps you take, you're going to have to take what works best for you. But the thing is let's say you really hung on to those dragons and now you're going and hiring different intuitives and different Akashic record readers, or maybe you come back for a reading or you go through past life and you're like, God, I just want to know about that. What if there are other messages that are meant to come through and that specific message is not meant to come through? It's kind of like when people go to like a medium or something, or they ask for a very specific thing, like, I want to talk to my grandma. Well, yes, we can set the intention and grandma may come through. It's likely that she'll come through, but I can't guarantee that the
What if
spirit is
she's
going to
already
be here.
been
I can't guarantee that like I'm going to be able to tap into a past life about your dragons.
It's more
Now,
like, why do you want to talk to your grandma? What is it you're trying to learn? And so, to that point, that's when I realized it was about the shame.
it was like the
And so,
deeper.
yeah, the past life was whether or not it was a real actual. What is actual? I'm not even going to go there, but let's say a literal past life
There we go.
that I
Yeah.
had, or if it was a way of illustrating in the strongest way possible to me this reoccurring theme. Because when you think about it, later on in that conversation, we talked about my soul agreement to experience things deeply, and then they pointed out very clearly that my throat misalignment was not a soul agreement; that was a human decision. Why was that a human decision? Probably because of the shame.
Mm-hmm.
The shame of getting things wrong. Okay. So, one of the things that has kind of come to my awareness after I kind of sat with that whole like, oh, okay, so I've done shame work before. I met
Mm-hmm.
you. It was part of my healing, part of my thought work that I did through a different modality. And I mean, it's not really, it doesn't really matter how I got there, but I do love it because it's my roots, my foundation of,
Mm-hmm.
your circumstances, thoughts, and then you have sensations in your body and you get to name them whatever emotion word. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more about what thought is causing what sensations, and then sitting with those sensations until they dissipate and being okay
Mm-hmm.
with it,
Mm-hmm.
because they do dissipate and they come in waves. And once you realize that you're not in that feeling forever unless you have the ongoing narrative and you keep evoking it over and over again, like you can just let it dissipate, and then it might come up again from a new circumstance and a new thought, but that's fine. That's kind of where I've started. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, like, you forgive yourself for that shame in different levels, right? And so once I realized that I had gone into myself, because you had said at the beginning of that reading, like, that you were moving some energy and that I was like curled up and hiding in some sense. And then obviously that's what she was doing, was curling up and hiding. And we kind of came together. You helped move some of that energy. And that's one of the biggest difference between a one-on-one reading with you and watching the mini readings. There's been a couple of times, but the actual, like, you're telling people about their records in the mini readings, you are physically helping to move energy around and breathe, like breathe things through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's energy movement,
Mm-hmm.
so you're moving it, and we might not even be consciously aware of what you've moved when you're in a one-on-one, like we did. So I think that's a huge thing that anybody listening should really understand is the mini readings are great for insight, but the work that you do as like a human when you're doing that channel between us and the Akashic records is you move things in ways that we couldn't have moved necessarily on our own. We can't just mindfully move that, like the physical movement of energy, which is why, I mean, you are a guide, but also you're guiding us to healing.
Mm-hmm.
So the work that you do is tangible. It's not just you're telling us things that we do ourselves. It's like the difference
Yeah.
between a coach and
Yeah.
a consultant, right?
Yep. Yep.
Coaches like bring things to your realization. Consultants will bring you plans, will bring you strategies to enact, or
Mm-hmm.
will get in there, do the work with you. So you're like a spiritual consultant. I don't know. Anyway, maybe that's a bad simile.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and maybe not
Either way,
even, because so much of what I do
right.
is energetic with what you're saying, because I have gone through coaching training. I have a coaching certification and coaching a big part of coaching is asking really powerful questions that help the
Mhm.
clients come to their own realization.
Yeah.
When I'm working one-on-one with somebody, especially with like the integrative practices, there are at times when those questions come through,
Mhm.
but I'm not coaching somebody.
Mm-mm.
Now, it's easy for someone to like have, like, if they need some kind of an identifier, sure, we're doing a spiritual coaching package, right? But like,
But you're
I'm
doing
not
like spiritual
coaching.
workout. You're like physical
Yeah,
therapy too. Like you're
it's,
moving the muscles in a
yeah.
painful way. No, maybe that's not the right analogy, but you know what I
No,
mean? Like you're doing work. You're not
yeah,
just
it's,
asking questions.
well, and especially those, I think there's two, what I'm coming to realize is there's two different type of people who come to me for this work.
Mhm.
There's those who come for a reading. We do a reading. They get the like massive impacts, like what you did, right? Like what we've been talking about here. They get the insights, they get the perspective, they get all of that. They go on their way. We're still interacting and we're still, in the circle, but I'm not meant to support them on an integrative journey, or at least not now,
Mhm.
right? And then there's other people who come for one-on-one or group. I'll speak to the one-on-one. Is the one-on-one is a lot of times what it is people who have spent a lot of their life looking to solve problems from their mind, and
Mhm.
their mind has got them a lot of things and they've had a lot of success, but they realize that solving problems from their mind is not like the way that they're meant to go next, and they're not really sure how to fully step into the energetics. They
Mhm.
maybe have played with it, they've had some success with it, but getting over those tried, and because this has been my work, getting over those tried and true ways of, okay, well, if I just show up and do this, or if I just offer that, or if I just do these things, to really step into that trust and faith and belief
Mhm.
that if you align from an energetic frequency standpoint, that it will come.
Mhm.
That right there is a lot of the work in the one-on-ones that I do. I actually just had a conversation last night with somebody who was sharing that they had an opportunity, because they're in a point in their business where they were like, okay, money, I want money to come in. Like, money, the math ain't mathin', I need some money coming in, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I've been there. I've spent lots of time. I actually, previous episode, I shared my money story, so you can
I
hear more
know.
about that.
Did that? When does that come out?
As of this recording, it hasn't come out yet. It'll be next
Yeah.
week, but
Yeah.
with
Right.
the
I was
recording, it
like,
would
because
have
I'm
already
waiting for that one.
it would have already come out.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's interesting because the temptation from the mind is, I need this money or I need this client, and then we get into a place of scarcity or fear or whatever is there. And
Mhm.
so we sacrifice sometimes, like standing in our power because we really want that outcome.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
really, time and time again, for me, and the podcast that came out before the money one was about me being all in and really trusting and believing, because when you are looking at external circumstances that may not make sense, where the mind wants to solve the problem, yet you know that the energetics are going to be much more powerful of an impact,
Mhm.
that right there is a insert the word that works for you, but for me, the word that feels good is like a tough place to be, because it's like, do you take this client for less? Do you, like, what do you do? Right? And so
Mhm.
anyways, like, one-on-one people come to me for, it seems to be that's like the transition that they're stepping into,
I
is
heard the best
really coming
analogy between
more.
a rock and a hard place. If you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and you're a snake, that's exactly where you want to be because it helps you shed your skin.
Hmm, I like that. I like
I
that.
know. Like I get this vision of the snake like just wriggling out of its like old like beat up skin from the last year or whatever, and you wriggle out, and then you're all like fresh and shiny. And you get to start moving in a new direction because obviously you're not gonna go either the rock or the hard
Right.
place direction. You're going up. So I love
Right.
like the visual that gives me. So it's a hard place to be. And what's interesting is the question that I would ask if we were to have a follow-up Akashic record reading would be, am I supposed to, or no, how would I phrase it? would I be getting in my own way if I focused on making money as like, is my purpose and my ability to make money, are they one and the same? So am I helping people, but I'm a cook? So like I'm helping people as a cook, like I'm being me, which I'll tell you in just a minute. The other thing that kind of like, speaking of trust, right? Trusting and such. Um, like, am I focusing too much energy on making money as a coach and making that work because it feels like a purpose? And I've decided that helping people in that capacity is part of my purpose. Because purpose is like coming across something and also deciding to wake up and keep doing it, right? And is that how I support my 3D life? Or do I support my 3D life from something else and just have fun coaching?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they actually one and the same? Am I pushing too hard on something, wanting it to show up in a certain way so badly?
So this is
You know?
not guidance specific to you, although it could be. Okay, so I'm just making it clear. I'm not like in your records right now. I'm not sharing
No, you're
guidance.
not. And that's why I
But
was like, if
but
you
I will
were,
tell
I
you,
would have asked.
well, I'll tell you a story because this just came up this week with a client.
How
And I'll
fun.
share with
Synchronicity.
you. I know this happens all the time because things will happen to me and then I'm having the conversation with the client and then like, so one of the pieces of guidance that came through with a similar type of situation was inviting this client to flip everything on its head,
Mm-hmm.
to remove the focus and the pressure from it coming in a certain way
Mm-hmm.
and to focus more on aligning with the truth of their soul and what lights them up and what feels really good. And it's
Mm-hmm.
through that we are a lot of times more able to hear the intuitive guidance or to notice the nudges or notice the intuitive steps to take.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That money through coaching in your example comes as a byproduct, right? So you
Yep.
still would potentially be coaching, but the focus isn't on the coaching because it's almost like when you focus on the coaching, not saying you, I'm using you, but like when
No,
we
use
focus
me.
on the
It's fine.
coaching, okay, when you focus on the coaching, sometimes, like you said, we're so wrapped up in it that that's where the money has to come from. That now it's become enlaced energetically with energetics or with scarcity, with fear, with lack, and a forcing. I need a client. I need a client. How do I? Blah, 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 when there's other creative ways that the coaching comes as a byproduct of what you do. Or,
Right.
like you said, it's
Right.
this fun thing that you do. It takes the pressure off. Now, I will say, I understand that we have 3D needs and we, need to have needs met financially with house and
Mm-hmm.
bills and food and all of that. And with everything that I share or that I lead or that comes through the records, like you obviously have to choose what's right for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some people can totally take a huge leap and jump off and be like, "Oh, I'm all in. I don't care. I don't get bills will be paid. Woohoo, I'm all in."
Well, and there's been a
And
certain
others
amount of that too.
aren't,
Yeah.
you know?
There's been a certain amount of that. And actually, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, because I always have told myself that I had to do this or that. I have to
Mm-hmm.
work for an hourly wage as a cook, or I have to make the coaching thing work. And what's really interesting is this year I've been working as a cook for an old mentor of mine. She was like the first person I worked on a line for. She's an owner operator of a seasonal restaurant. I worked there for 4 years before I kind of moved on into more management type places. Um, and I have shown up there as myself, in myself, doing my work with my energetics, doing like looking at my aura, like strong convictions, loosely held sort of, thing, letting myself be present, even if being present meant that I was late to work, at work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even if I made mistakes, even if I got grumpy, even if I like all the things that I used to beat myself up for when I was on that trajectory of my career is cooking. my career. I am a person who feeds people food, you know, and I manage people who feed people food. Okay. Like all the things. I would exhaust myself trying to do more and trying to be better and a perfect example and like perfectionism, like really, really like I'm going to do this perfectly so that other people around me also like rise to meet that. And I made that mean something about me if they didn't. So this year, I have been late for work, sometimes upwards of an hour. This, okay, first of all, do not try this at home. You might get fired. Okay, that's my disclaimer. But I was always somebody who would show up early all the time. And then, like, the one time I called in or one time I was late, I'd get like in trouble. I'd get written up because of the energy that I was putting off when I was there. Right. But when I put off this, like, I'm here at the perfect time, might not be the time that's on the schedule, but I'm here at the perfect time. Here I am. And I'd be present the whole time I was there. And I'd put the work in and I'd go home. And I'd start working on coaching stuff, like developing an offer and working on my visuals and these things that I have like in my head that I haven't put into reality yet because I'm finding them still. I'm like small nudges. I have to have the full experience of developing them. I was never one who could just throw a color, you know, it's not about your logo, it's not about your colors. Actually, for me, kind of like, I kind of like that part. Like, I want that to be fully like clicked in. I don't want to, I have a website about it. It's not perfect, you know. I put it out into the world, but I'm not actively steering people towards it because I don't love it. You know? So like just doing those two sorts of things and then being in service to people. Being around people in my off time who light me up. Like you, you know, doing things for people that light me up. And not really having the service part of it mean that I don't value myself. Because sometimes like in coaching or in this sort of space of offering intangible services, if you're not charging money for what you're doing, then you're somehow devaluing yourself. I'm like, no, what if I'm still discovering? And I think that that's okay. I think you can discover yourself and make money somewhere else. You know, like there's this like balance thing that I've been figuring out this summer that I don't have to be all in on my hourly job to do a good job. I don't have to be attached to my performance there. I just have to show up like me. And my performance will be what it needs to be. And then when it comes to developing my coaching business, I just need to show up the way I'm going to be. And that means maybe not following the classic advice for how to build an offer. You know, oh, get people locked in for 4 to 6 weeks. No, actually, I don't want to spend that much time with people. I want 3 sessions and a bonus. That's what I've decided. That's what I'm doing.
I haven't recorded this yet, but it's one of my ideas is like for the podcast is I'm sickened to what I have. I'm done with formulas and plans. Like I'm so over it. You know. Okay. Notice we're coming up on the hour. So yes. I do want to bring this. I mean, obviously we could talk for a very long time, but I do want to bring this, reel it in a bit. Before we reel in, I do want to share, I really feel guided. I wasn't planning. Oh, it's 11:11 recording time right now in my time zone. I did want to share that if you are listening or watching and you feel drawn to the Akashic Records and you feel a calling where you want to learn how to open the records for yourself or others, reach out to me because I've known this for a while. Keri's known this and so many other people in my circle have known this, that I would be teaching the Akashic Records, and that time has come. So if that's something that you're interested in, drop me a message on Instagram would probably be the best place. I'm at the Akashic Nomad over there, and we'll just have a conversation. I'm going to be running a group or two that is going to be like more beta-ish, but it's not beta because it's going to be fucking amazing and powerful, but it's beta in the fact that it's going to be the first round of molding this, and those who are in the first round or two are going to be a part of developing this. So there's going to be a lot more flexibility than when it's already established, right? Like, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that interests you, reach out to me. The other thing I'm going to say is that, yes, there is a beta aspect to this. And if you are listening to this 1 or 2 years in the future and I'm past that, still reach out to me, because whatever I can do at that point in my journey to point you and help you in your journey with the Akashic Records, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question for Keri.
And
go ahead.
Oh, can I just add to that?
Yes.
I don't think that you don't have to be an Akashic record reader as a profession to want to do this. I just want to point that out, because I am definitely drawn to being able to get into my Akashic records myself. And I am not necessarily getting yet that that's my job. You know, that
Well,
is
could just be part of what you offer.
Yeah, that's my
on
guy.
a side thing. Yeah.
One of the things that I've accepted about energetics is that things drop into my mind and I don't have to logically know where they came from. My job is to share them and not be attached to what the person does with what I share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is something that I was really missing in my coaching, as I was trying to create frameworks and guidelines so that I could teach people how to do the same thing. And maybe that's just something that I can do that is uniquely, powerfully Keri.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, Keri, is for you, at least this is what I'm like feeling right now, is that it's almost like Akashic Records, learning how to open for others, for yourself, is a portal way into you deepening the trust of your intuition that's already present. That right there. And I will also say that you may not read for people, as I've stepped in and become the Akashic nomad, but at the same time, you have so many tools on your tool belt that when it's appropriate, you will use that tool and you'll bring it in. The last thing I wanted to share is that this work is so profoundly impactful, and however you're led to it, for whatever reason, in whatever way, the space in the spiritual world and the Akashic record world that I really want to fill is to provide a space where there is more opportunities to practice. And so regular meeting with other peers who are on the same journey and path, practicing reading for others, whether you're going to do it or not, because it's going to strengthen your intuition, practicing reading for others. I don't care if you do it professionally. Yeah, like it gives you the strength for that, and practicing that, that is going to be a huge part of this training, as well as integrating in. So 7 weeks of magic is that experience that helps people step into their strength, like strengthening their intuition and trust with themselves. That is going to be a part of the training and like a prerequisite, but I hate that word, but like that is like a foundational piece.
Preparation period
for that.
It's about creating the language. It's language, because everything you do has its own unique lexicon. The way in which words are used. And everybody has to, no matter what you're doing, you have to have that introduction to the vocabulary, so to speak.
Yes. And in this being so firm and clear for me that that's the space I'm going to hold for people, I am going to share a bit of where the mind came in and being like, well, whoa, they could go over here and get a training for less, or they could go over there and get a certification. Right now, this is where I'm being guided. I don't need to. And just like you, if you've got programs and things you're putting together or things that are holding you back from putting it out there, it's a consistent conversation with the mind aspect of us to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, other people are going to offer it. Very easy access, Udemy course, bam, 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 learn. You can totally do that. But what I find is there are a lot of people learning the records, whether it be from podcasts or finding prayers online or, quick things, and then they're not doing anything with it, or they're accessing the records maybe once every couple of months, And then what's coming through, they're questioning what's coming through. And when they share with me what came through in their last like reading for themselves, I'm like, yeah, you're in the records. Hello. Like, yes, 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 yes. So it's providing that confirmation and that
And what a great way to
space.
connect with other humans is to know that no matter how we get there, we're in the same space.
Yeah.
Oh, that is like,
Yes. Yes.
because it's, because I think to me, the journey of accessing and knowing that I'm accessing, there's things, there's prayers, there's, I think I have a couple things sitting in my inbox and a book currently that could show me how to get into the records. And it's funny because I haven't put the effort into daily practice to try and do it myself because I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to have that experience with you. Is what it came down to. And like, I haven't put out, like I'm not hitting my coaching. I'm not moving quickly through the development of my visuals and my marketing because I don't want to. And that's okay too, so it doesn't always have to be fear. It could sometimes just be, there's nothing wrong with me for taking more time. And there's nothing wrong with me when I want to rush. It's all about my experience.
Yeah.
And I choose it.
Yeah.
And I could choose from my mind, or I can know from my own self-trust, from that deep gut feeling that this is not a problem.
Yeah. It's such a shift. And if you haven't listened to my podcast episode, I'm All In. That's where I really talk about how I'm alongside and I'm leading of really, because at this moment, I don't have proof that it works, that if you trust and you go into the energetics, but I know that it's going to work, and I'm not giving up, and I'm not stepping away, and I'm all in. I'm doing this. And when you hear my money episode, you'll see even more why I'm all in, because I'm not, yes, we need the 3D, the financial things to make things work. Absolutely. And I'm telling you that this has been my big part of my soul path and journey, is to release a lot of the shame around money and to really trust myself and trust what's coming through, and the stuff that I'm the most connected to my materials than when I was like trying to do coaching before. I'm the most connected to my materials. I'm connected to the message. I'm connected to the stories. I'm connected. I am so embodied with this work. Way more before than when I was trying to create frameworks and I was trying to create programs.
Yeah.
Way more. And it's funny because I never thought that I would have, I don't know. I wanted, before I wanted a program that I did on repeat, a signature program. But then when I really sat with it, I was like, I really don't want that. But it's funny, is I'm actually probably going to have that, at least for a time frame, with teaching the records and the 7 weeks of magic, like in a way that'll be the signature program. But I feel like for me, it's going to just be a
different place,
piece of what I'm doing, right? Like I'm always going to be doing different things. It'll be a piece of what I do because people want to learn in a way that doesn't put them in a box. And I'm going to be that door opener for them to help the people who go through this to come to, like, it's the way I say it right now, is there's going to be like, here's some prayers that you can use. We're going to try a prayer, start with something, and then let's move you towards a place where you're creating your own prayer if you choose. You don't have to, but where you're creating your own process. It's not just my process. It's not
understanding
someone else's.
How the ritual works.
Yeah.
And why ritual period works, and why it's okay to have your own ritual, but ritual is like humans coming together in church kind of creates the same energetics as humans coming together at a football game or a concert. So like, we are still human. And we have these activities that are unlocking for us. And if we're aware of the grassroots, I suppose, of those activities and what they energetically do for us.
Yes.
That's so helpful.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I
Yes.
love that so
Okay.
much.
And then we can like keep going
I
on
could
and
keep
on and
going.
on.
Like, yeah, there's so many things that we could go on. But I'm
Okay,
so
we
excited
totally
that you're
went off
finally
track.
doing that program. Like you had kind of like hinted at it. The fact that you're saying it now makes me so
Yeah.
excited because it means it's happening.
Yeah, it's
And
happening.
yeah. Oh,
It's
and
happening.
another thing about
Yes.
ancestors, real quick before we go, is I'm actually going to do an ancestral healing.
Yes, that was my last question for you because I was going to say, hold
Because
on, before you say it, I was going to say you were looking at doing another Akashic record reading with someone else, which I think is beautiful. So fill in
and it's for a different
purpose.
and she does it in a different way, right? She was on here. And so I don't remember what episode. I'll let you plug that in. But anyway, so I'd actually heard her.
Akashic mediumship.
Yeah, Akashic mediumship. But she really enjoys doing like this regression ancestral healing thing. And part of my knowing, part of my giving up, part of my relinquishing to belief and trust in myself and trust in the universe, because I think that that's kind of, we are the universe. Anyway, doesn't matter. Is knowing that I can't do everything myself, and I don't have to. I don't have to do it all myself. So I can take myself into the Akashic records, but I had this very clear notion that I shouldn't heal it by myself. That I need somebody who has the experience in actually healing. And I had that notion, and I literally heard this podcast that I had no idea. Like somehow they know you, and you introduced them to this other Akashic record reader, and they mentioned you, and I was like, I heard your name like 3 times. I was like, is that the same Jenny? Like totally cool.
That's hilarious.
And then, like she did, and it was just like full body chills. And then she like sang her way into the Akashic records, and it, like my throat started vibrating because we had talked about the misalignment, and I was just like, oh, I need to do something here. And I was like, oh, I need to heal that's it. I need to get her. And what's really funny is we're not doing it for a couple more weeks. So mid-October, depending on when this comes out, is kind of when we're
I don't know
looking
yet.
at it. And so
it might be about that time, honestly.
And
might be
it
about
feels
that time.
so aligned because of like astrology, like all the little things that are happening all around. Like I can see how the timing is going to be perfect.
I love it.
And I know that that's going to create a whole new, I don't want to say level. I hate level. Graduating. No, it's going to create a whole new expansion. Vantage point for me. I'm going to see things differently after that. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking because of my family's like immediate history. I'm like, oh, this is. I told her, I was like, if we need to stop, like reserve the right to know when like it's too much, because I don't know what's back there in my ancestors. And that's different than my own past lives. That's like soul family, right? That's like parallel energies that we're going to go back and work on. And so that's really exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking because of the same reason of not being able to ask for what I want, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if it's too much for somebody? What if I hurt somebody by asking her to help me heal this? Like, I'm like dealing with that mind drama right now as we're getting a little bit closer and as I've committed, and like, oh, what am I getting her into? Like what if I cause a battle that I can't call my dragons, like, and it's funny because I see from that observation standpoint, I see myself doing that and being worried about it from a mental standpoint. And I just need to trust and know that she has her sovereignty and I have my own, and we are going to figure it out, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever it ends up being.
I love that. Any final thoughts on your experience? Yeah. Any final thoughts on your experience? Because, this was a follow-up episode that we went into lots of other things. Any other final thoughts?
On my experience with your reading. Let it speak to you the way it speaks to you in the moment. Do go back and listen to it. And that goes for anything. Really. Anything. Because you said it was intuitive coaching that you just went back and listened to. Like, revisit things and try on different lenses, and know that Our patterns that have kept us safe to this point will continue to try to keep us safe. And it's more about recognizing and moving through that faster as opposed to eliminating it or shaming it or making it mean something about you that you have those patterns of protection. That's all.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for spending your time with us and sharing your story. And we talked in all different directions about all different things. So I know that something, if not multiple somethings, definitely hit you, the listener, the watcher, in many different ways. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you want to find all my links of all the things, you can go to thelifeadventurist.com. There you'll find, how to book a reading, my social media, my YouTube. Well, if you're already on YouTube, you're here, but you'll find all of that there at thelifeadventurist.com. It'll take you to my solo.2 page. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. We have some great episodes coming up. And thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.
My mouse isn't working. There it goes.